Kathleen here, just checking in with you. Today I have a little bit of release work for you that you can do at home. I don't know about you, but it's been a while since my last massage, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen for me very positively in the near future. So, have to take care of these things on my own or on your own. What you will need for this video today is 1 to 2 balls. These are actual physical therapy balls from the OPTP website. We sell at Pure Pilates as well. You can use tennis balls, you can use lacrosse balls. It just kind of depends on how much tension you have and how much pressure you can take. These I like because they are kind of a medium pressure. Tennis balls are a little too soft for me, but if you're just getting into foam rolling, tennis balls might be perfect. Lacrosse balls are even harder than this. That's what I started with, and then back myself down a little bit. It doesn't have to hurt to the point where you can't breathe in order for you to feel like you're doing something. So please keep that in mind. It is not about pain. It is about discomfort, right? Big difference. The other thing you will also need is a foam roller. I have this beautiful Balanced Body one I bought for myself several years ago. One of my best investments I've ever made. 36 inches is a wonderful length for a foam roller because you can lay on it from tail to head. They sell a lot of foam rollers all over the place. Target, Dick's, Amazon, you name it. If you don't have one and you're going to invest in one, or if you have one that's a little bit smaller and you see what you can work with something that's a little bit bigger, go for the 36-inch one. This one is a medium kind of a density to it. I don't like them too soft. I don't like them too hard. Personally, I don't like the trigger point ones, but you know, to each his own. Whatever you've got will suffice. This is straight foam, right? Some of them are a little harder, and some are coated with some stuff on the outside to, like I say, affect those trigger points. And if that's for you, super. If it's not, go for something simple. So, in the meantime, let's get started. We're going to set our balls off to the side. Hopefully they don't go rolling around anywhere like we're in The Shining. Come play with us and our foam roller. Okay, there we go. All right, so what we are going to start with first, the simplest, easiest way. On a mat, on the floor, on a towel, on a blanket, foam roller is going to come back behind the middle of your back. Your feet are flat on your mat. All right, if you've got a lot of loose clothing, gather it out of the way. If you've got long hair, pull it up. It's going to help. I always like to just kind of bring mine up and around from all those years of having really long hair, and I like to keep my hands up on the sides of my head. From here, all we're going to do is pick up the hips, and we're going to go from about the middle of the back, so just at the bottom of the rib cage, to the shoulder blades. And I like to stay right in that area to first get started. And the first few times you go over, you're like, ugh, right? That's good. That's good. That's what we want. I find for me personally, the more roundedness I get in my back, the more I can actually affect where I really need it. Once you've made a few passes over there, I do like to go across the back of the shoulder blades. I find for me, I have to be a little bit straighter in my upper spine. If it's comfortable for you to arch over it, that's cool too. Sometimes this can make people feel dizzy. So if it does, you know, don't put your head back. Just keep your head up. If it feels weird on the back of your shoulder blades, don't pass over them, right? Like I say, we're staying in the mid-spine, thoracic spine, back of the rib cage, back of the shoulders. The fun part about foam rolling too is you move around all over the place. So your mat might be in one place, but by the time you get done, you'll be over there, right? So, same setup, little different variation. This one is a little bit more uncomfortable than our last one, right? Again, everything out of the way. Before we get lifted up, we're going to take a rotation to one side. Doesn't matter which side you go to because you got 2 of them, all right? Knees are going to stay relatively straight up. Right now, I'm headed towards my right side, so I'm thinking about making connections through the right side of my back. I'm going to lift my hips up, and I'm going to roll right across the back of the rib cage on the right side, up towards that shoulder blade, and I'm never leaving the back of the rib cage. I'm not rolling into that soft tissue between the ribs and the top of the hips, staying on the bones. And this is it for me. This is as high up as I can go. And then you just do the same thing to the other side. You turn, little rotation, and you roll it up. And you roll it back. I'm moving. The cool thing about foam rolling too is you might feel a few pops here and there. Some of that's the fascial tissue releasing. Some of your ribs popping back into place, believe it or not. Sometimes your ribs can kind of move around a little bit. They're not gonna like dislocate, but they are gonna move. And you know, it's like going to the chiropractor, just kind of, you know, getting everything back in place. From here, we're gonna slide that roller all the way down to the back of your neck. And we're done, just kidding. All right, no, not really. This is just a little bit back of the neck, back of the head, just a little tilt from side to side. Feels really nice. Across the back of the skull. And that's just a really nice way to release some of that tension. If you sit for a long time in front of a computer, if you're homeschooling kids, you know, let the neck, let the head go. While we're here, mostly down on the floor, we're going to turn to our sides. All right, doesn't matter which side you start on because you're going to do both, and I'm only going to show one. All right, your roller is going to come underneath the side of your body until it gets just about to that place where your shoulder blade and your armpit meet. I have my legs just mostly stacked. Hips are stacked, knees are somewhere bent, just where they're comfortable. For most of us, this is all we need right here. If you want a little bit more, you can soften that bottom elbow and you can let the head hang down. This is for the serratus and the lats. So underneath the arm, we're getting some of those muscles that help to connect the shoulder, that help to connect the top half of the body to the lower half of the body. This one, if you need a little bit of movement, what I would recommend is just a slight roll up towards the ceiling and a slight roll down towards the floor. And this, just heads up, can be super painful. So if the movement doesn't feel good, stay here and breathe. And then take your time, come up, and of course, you'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Moving along. We're going to continue to attack that posterior line, all right? This time we're up, sits bones right there on the top of that roller, hands back behind you somewhere where they're comfortable. Foam rolling can be a very physical activity. So, you know, if you need to take breaks in between, if you want to take a little rest as you're doing things, if you need to pause the video, you know, please feel free. If you ever need to stretch your wrists out too, there's a lot more work in foam rolling than there is in a massage. It's not nearly as relaxing, but it'll still keep your body moving and healthy and keep those adhesions and tension from building up in the time period that we can't go and get our regular work done. Okay, so here we are. We're on our roller. We're just going to go back and forth. And I'm thinking about the glutes. Those are your butt cheeks, the technical term. Just going right over the center. You know, and if you're anything like me, you get to your sits bones and there's like a little pop back and forth. Yeah, that's, you know, just some tension. It's okay. All right. And then what I really like to do here too, this is always fun, bend one knee. If you're setting up for a figure four stretch, you cross that foot over the top of the opposite knee, and then you're going to dip your knees towards the lifted leg side. So this is my right knee. I'm going towards my right hip, and I'm going to roll right on the back of that right glute. Whoo! External rotators, piriformis. How many of us have sciatica problems? This is a good one for this right here. Tight hips. Tight hamstrings, lower back issues. This is one I would work with for this here. Whatever you do on one side, try the same thing on the other. You know, there's no wrong or recommended number of passes. You know, I mean, I wouldn't do something like foam roll one place for 15 minutes. I don't think that's going to do anything. But, you know, pass over a few times. If you start passing over it and it doesn't feel good to move it, like I said before, just leave it. Hold, breathe. Sometimes that's all we need, right? If it's comfortable to make a few passes, you know, just a few here and there, and then we move on. All right? From here, the hammies, I find for this one, I gotta kind of move myself up because I'm gonna move back. All right, so we're gonna go legs out nice and long. Shake your hands out a little bit if you need to. All right, again. Straight down the backs of the legs. And if you're anything like me and you hyperextend, soften your knees. It's not gonna help. They're locked out. So we're going right up and down the backs of the legs. This feels good, looks cool. A little bit of core work, a little bit on your hands too. All right? And then what I also like to do with this one, make it a little bit more fun, you're gonna take both feet and you're gonna turn towards one side. I'm going to the right. So now I can get the back edge of the IT band where it meets the hamstrings. And on my left leg, I can get my inner thigh, my adductors, down towards the inside of that knee. This is just a really nice, simple way to wake that area up. And then the same thing to the other side. So the legs turn. So we're thinking about kind of the diagonal, that outside of the one, the inside of the other. And then from there, we're gonna have a seat for just a second. A little stretch here in between, one of my favorite assisted stretches. Little Baddha Konasana, knees on the roller, feet together. Hands can be on the front of the legs or the mat. And we're just gonna fold forward. And just as you fold forward, maybe you can walk your hands out. Let your head go. Deep breath in. And breathe out. Now we're gonna do one more. Inhale. And exhale. And we're gonna walk it up. We're gonna take that roller underneath your calves. I run a lot. I dance a lot. My calves are just chronically tight. For me, I kind of like to start somewhere just beyond the middle of the calf because this is where the majority of my tightness is. And this is all I do, right here, like this, just to start out with. If you want to go more towards the middle of the calf, that's cool too. I find I don't get as much leverage if I'm using both legs at the same time, if I'm too high up towards the knees. So, work where you need to work. The cool thing about this too, just like with the rotation of the legs when we're working on the hammies in the back, you can take the feet and turn them to one side. And then you can get a little bit more in the different heads of the gastroc over there, maybe even into some peroneals depending on how far down you're going. It just depends. And then if you go one side, go to the other. I also like this variation too, for most of us. The more I work with people, the more I see this. There's usually a spot somewhere in the center of the calf where it's like, wow, I can't even move there. And that's fine. We just hold it. And then what I like to do with that is just to kind of take the feet and the hips, turn them just a little bit to the one side, and then a little bit to the other side. Ooh! And if you found that spot, you're going to be like, oh my God, Kathleen. I know. It's crazy. Just a little rock from side to side. That's all you need. There are different schools of thought out there that believe that you should not roll out the Achilles tendon. I do not roll out the Achilles tendon itself, but I do like to get close down towards the bottom edge of the calf muscle where it connects into the Achilles tendon. So I like to think about this space right about from here to here. That is much more comfortable for me, but also still gives me, like I say, all those years of ballet and all the running that I do, I have to have just a little bit of compression here in this area, and that feels nice to me. I'm not actually rolling on the very back of my ankle where the foot and the leg meet, just above it. All right, let's talk about one other big thing here with foam rollers you see all the time, rolling out your IT band. Okay, for those of us who don't know exactly what the IT band is or where, it runs down the side of the leg, right? It is a band of connective tissue. It's not a muscle, right? Think of it almost like the casing that keeps the meat inside of the sausage, right? So imagine if you roll on that directly, what is that going to do to the sausage inside of it? I don't want to guess, all right? So when people say, oh, it's my IT band, I need to roll my IT band out. In a sense, yes, but what we really want to target instead are the muscles from the hamstrings that connect down the side and the lower part of the IT band, and then the muscles in the quadricep that connect and run alongside the top half of the IT band. right? Never directly down the side of your leg. If you've done it and you're like, oh my God, it's the most painful thing I've ever done. Yes, it is, because it's not the best thing you've ever done for your IT band, all right? We could create more problems and more scar tissue buildup in there, and then that's going to cause even more problems later on. So remember, under and above, not on, okay? So let's talk about that. I'll demonstrate one side that you can see it, and then we'll move on from there. I like to start first with the area right at the front of my hip. Kind of think about just above on the outside, just slightly. That's the place for me that if I get that on there and I get it in the right spot, whew, we just let it sit. This is really great for your glute medius, your external rotators, your TFL. You can rock a little forward and back here. This is another really good spot. A lot of places here in this area build up tension and then it pulls on the IT band. So again, working the muscles around the IT band, not the IT band itself, okay? And I'll usually do this, I hang out here. Sometimes I'll do stuff like I go back a little bit and get the butt cheek a little bit more. Or for me, for my dancer friends, go a little bit more towards the front and get a little bit more into the hip flexor and the hip crease. And then again, like I say, we're focusing on those muscle fibers above or below the IT band. So in order to get that, I'm gonna actually flip, right? Just a little bit here. I like to bring the other leg somewhere out in front, either on the roller, across the front of the roller, or somewhere, all right? And we're gonna go down the diagonal of the quad. So if you'll notice where my leg is, it's slightly rotated. This is my left leg, slightly rotated, but we're going down the quadricep, just on this outside edge of it here. I'm making this look easy. This is not fun. It's all those years of ballet. You know, you might get to a middle of the leg there and you're like, woo! That's okay, right? You know, don't force it. Your body weight is heavy and that's a lot of pressure to put on your leg and you're trying to hold yourself up at the same time. It's not like a massage therapist where you can say, that's too much, I need to back off. You're in control. And remember, more is not always better, okay? Again, above and below, when we're rolling out that. When we talk about the quads, I generally like to start with both of them. And I'll go somewhere between the hip crease itself to the middle of the quad first. I kind of think about it in sections, maybe like 2 to 3 sections. Top section, middle section, and bottom section. If you don't have a lot of tension in your quads, maybe just top and bottom. And what I mean by that is once you get towards the middle of the quad, you can get more towards the upper knee. And this may be more uncomfortable or less uncomfortable. And then the other cool thing is you can practice your elbow plank while you're here. Yep, that's right. Don't sink into your back. Push down into your arms. Pull your belly button in towards your spine. Again, like I say, foam rolling is great for you. Not nearly as relaxing as letting someone else work out all the tension. Just like we did on our hamstrings, you can do the same kind of thing here with the rotation of the legs. Whew, there's that quad. Inside one, outside the other. Little pass here. And then I'll do the same thing to the opposite side over here. I also just personally like sometimes, it feels good on my lower back, just to rest here for a moment. My hip flexors are like, ah. My lower back lengthens out. It looks goofy, but it feels great. Yep. And then from here, this is a fun one too. Your shin muscles, your anterior tibialis, right? If you're a walker, if you're a runner, if you're a hyperextender. If you want a core workout, you got your hands here, all right? We're gonna start somewhere just below the bottom of the knees, and then you roll forward, and you roll back. And I'm thinking about lifting my weight out of my hands and using my abs to help support me here so that I'm not dumping all of my weight down into both my shins and my palms as I move. Yep, this one's fun. Makes you look really cool too. And then from here, we're just gonna come back. I always like a nice little child's pose with a foam roller, especially if you've got the super duper long one. You can sit on either side and walk yourself down. Head can rest on one side of the roller or the other. Just a kind of nice way to relax, to breathe. And then bring it up nice and slow. Set that guy off to the side. Let's come back with our balls. Okay, I do find this is easiest to work with two. Some of you guys might even have, I've seen them, I know there's a technical term for them, but I don't know what they're called. The balls that are connected together. I have seen them in a sock. A lot of my dancers make their own little balls in a sock. They tie them together, or sometimes they are actually connected. That's fine, totally cool, whatever you need to work with. But what we're gonna do here, so I want you to think about, this is piriformis, lower back, and hips on either side of the sacrum, right? Where is your sacrum? It's that bony triangle at the very bottom of your spine, right? So I'm on my glutes, but I'm right on the outside of the bone. That's the bone, and I'm right next to it. And I'm gonna take that from here, and I'm gonna lay down. And then I'm gonna lift my hips up, and I'm gonna put these two little guys, if you only got one, do one side at a time, put these two little guys right in that same spot. And when you get there, you will know. I generally like here to pause just for a moment and keep it where it's at. And then once I start to kind of feel comfortable, I'll move my hips to the right and to the left. And I think about making a straight line with my hips. And I'm going all the way over as far as I can in both directions. And like I say, piriformis, sciatica issues, this is a good one, right? Sometimes your balls move around. You just got to readjust. It's not a bad thing. Actually, I'm going to do this so I can see you. All right. From here, I also like to play with moving them around a little bit more to the outsides of the hips. Kind of find those outer greater trochanters as you need to. You can play with moving them down lower or higher. Be careful, we don't want them to end up behind the back of the body. We want them behind the back of the hips. So your spine should not be on this at all, and your lower back should not be on this at all. It should be at least under the hem of the top of your pants, just from where I like it to be, and where you really need it to be. And again, side to side, you can do your figure four. I mean, you got all kinds of options over here that you can play with as much as you're comfortable with. This can be a lot or a little. I do this a lot because I need it. So for me, my tolerance is built up. This is your first time doing it. You know, you'll be lucky if you can let your hips rest on the ball sometimes. You know, so just keep that in mind. Personally, I really also like to take both of the balls and turn a little bit more to the one side, and I try to kind of support the head of the greater trochanter, and I will roll here like this on both sides. This helps with my hip stuff. I mean, it feels great to me. Might not feel great to you. Other thing I like to do with the ball while we're down here, we need just one for this one. You're gonna take one knee, you're gonna bend it, and you're gonna place that ball back behind the back of that knee. From here, you're gonna hold on to the front of the shin. The farther you hold down toward your foot, the more intense this is gonna be. This is calf, knee release, and hamstring. And then from here, tiny little flex. I apologize for the banging. That's my next door neighbor. Her roof was affected by our tornadoes last night. Yeah, that's right, tornadoes. What's next? All right, we rotate that foot around a couple times. If you can circle it. If not, just leave it there. I usually just like to start as far in towards the knee pit as I can, and then from here I like to move it down a little bit further, and then you can get even more into that calf muscle. You know, for those of you guys who have tight calves, plantar fasciitis issues, even hamstring stuff, depending on how tight your hamstrings are, this pressure may be good for you on both the top and the bottom half of the back of the leg. While we're talking calves, let's keep going. We're going to sit up for this one. Okay. When I'm rolling out my calves with the ball, I like to focus on 3 different areas. The inside, straight down the back line, and slightly on the outside, all right? So what I think about first is one leg out in front, and the ball is just somewhere in the center of that leg. And for some of us, this might be it. You're like, wow, that is a lot. If you want to roll, you can kind of move a little bit side to side. We talked about that spot in the calves on the foam roller. There it is, I found it. Maybe you just let it breathe. Maybe you think about just a little bit of movement in your foot, and you might find your foot doesn't even hardly want to move at all, and that's okay, totally fine. That's the back of the leg. The inside of the leg, I like to turn. So whichever leg I'm doing, I put that leg in the back. This is my left leg. It's going to come on the inside of that left leg. My right knee is bent, and this is fun. You're just going to go roll up and down the length of that shin. And if you're anything like me, you're like, wow, I had no idea this was so painful. I did, I just kind of like it. There we go. And then, I'm going to do this leg because this is where I'm set up. I'm working on the outside of the leg. You can go here. You can go down towards the knee. You can cross this leg over if you need to. Just depends. Outside leg is a little harder to work with, but I do like to get into the peroneals on the outer edge of the knee. They are another one of those muscles, especially for those of you who are very active on your feet, that sometimes get really tight and can cause issues like heel pain and plantar fasciitis and all kinds of other stuff, right? So it's important to get those too. While we're talking about our feet, plantar fasciitis, right? What does that mean? That's the tissue in the bottom of your foot, and it sometimes gets scrunched up, sometimes it's injury, sometimes it's scar tissue. It's a combination of things for a lot of us that have issues with that. I do like to roll the feet out. You can do this sitting, you can do this standing. You can do this in a chair, it just depends. When I think about rolling the feet out, I think about going right down the center line of the foot. And that's the first place I go. And then I also like to, I say like, I mean this in a good way, inside of the foot. Whew, that big toe muscle. This is harder when you're standing because the pressure can be much greater. I'm just demonstrating it for you here in this video from a seated position. And then I also like to go towards the other arch of the foot, the lateral arch underneath the pinky toe side of the foot. I like to do other things sometimes, like just flex the heel and push the toes over to make a little dome. Always a nice stretch. And I even, if I'm standing, I like to push the heel down into the ball. I have found for myself recently, here even as a Pilates and yoga instructor and all the years of ballet that I've had, I teach so much and I don't do as much for myself as I really need. And recently I've been rolling my feet out before I go for a run, and it is amazing the difference that I feel and how I can connect to the floor, how I can feel my feet through the shoes, how I can feel my toes spreading. And then I find I don't have as many issues with my calves and my feet after the fact if I roll them out before. So something to keep in mind. Last thing I want to show you here, this is always a little bit of fun, you will need a wall, all right? So before we move to the wall, and you can do this again with 1 or 2 balls, I'm going to do one here right now because I have one in my hand. I want you to think about finding that place just on the inside of your shoulder blade and the middle of your spine. So spine's here, shoulder blade's here, we're going in the middle of that. All right, this is easiest when standing, but again, I'm going to show you just while we're sitting here. All right, your ball is going to come behind the back of that shoulder blade, and for some of us, you might just need to kind of sit there. And you think like, you know how the bears do on the trees? You're like, oh, this is great, right? Get in that spot. If you're standing, you can bend your knees and you can roll up and down the wall. I do like this too, even just with this trigger point, this pressure point here. You can kind of adjust. It can come up a little bit higher, more towards the middle of your shoulder blade, about an inch or two beyond the top of the edge here. And then while I'm holding that there, I like to move my head a little bit. This is good for the neck and the shoulders. A lot of times I find in my clients, they either have shoulder issues that are related to their stiff neck or neck issues that are related to their stiff shoulders. Move your head around, guys. It's so good for you, right? You know, so your head and your neck should be able to move independently of your shoulders and vice versa. Don't get stuck. I like to do that. That's one of my favorite ones. Like if you sleep wrong, put that back there, roll around. Like I say, if you're standing, you bend your knees and you roll up and down the wall, just like the bears do. And that's going to really help to open that space up in the back of the body. I'll have a few more here later on, but for right now, this is all I've got for you. I hope that this is a little bit informational and a little bit helpful for you as far as keeping the levels of tension in your body at a more balanced level. I know it's a lot, but breathe in, focus, centering, all will help. Taking some time to relax and to release is just as important as taking some time to exercise.